Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to Lancaster's newest turn-of-the-century print shop. You would find a shop much like this from about 1880 to about 1930 because things didn't change that quickly as they do today. We employ a method of printing called letterpress, where we actually set the type and print the job by hand and print the job. This particular press we run with a treadle. We run by foot, so there's no electric involved in running this press. As a matter of fact, the lights are electric, and right now in this shop, that's the only thing that's electric. One of the things that I've learned over the course of time that I've been here is that young people and even older people bring with them the inventions of today. So let me set the stage for you so you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Back then, there were no computers, no email, no faxes, no copiers. If you wanted to heat something, you heated it with wood or you heated it with coal. If you wanted to travel somewhere, you rode a horse, took a carriage, or took a train. And many times the carriage and the horse went further than the train. Back then, at the turn of the century, probably about 1911, there were only 144 miles of paved roads in the United States. We didn't really need any. We rode a horse. If you wanted to contact someone, you actually would send them a telegram, send them a note, or actually take out a piece of paper and write them a letter, meaning no texting. This means you spell out every word, correct punctuation, sign it, fold it, put it in an envelope, stamp it, and send it U.S. Post. In today's demonstration, we're going to get through some periods of time where you have to understand that making paper was a laborious process. We couldn't go to Staples and buy a ream of paper. Paper was made the size that you wanted it, piece by piece. So paper was very, very dear. And if you had a job and it was a particular size, we'd have that paper made for that size. If you would come to a shop like this, again, if I'd have another 30 feet, I could put a newspaper press back here because they weren't that big. And we would be a printing office. Without the press, with the newspaper press, we are a job shop. And a job shop means that normal people, such as yourselves, would come in and get signs or business cards or an invitation or yard sale signs or whatever personal things you want, and we would provide that for you. I'm sure that most people here have heard of the franchise Signs by Tomorrow. Well, we were Signs by next month, maybe. Okay. It depends on what you wanted. Text is no problem. We can set that. But if you wanted an illustration or something like that, we would have to have that made. And it would take a long time. If you would come to us at the turn of the century, you would find 4 people working in a shop this size. You would find the owner who took care of the people part, wrote all the checks, and could run every machine in the shop because he apprenticed somewhere. Now, when you apprenticed in the graphic arts industry or the printing industry from the 1600s through the beginning of the 1800s, you relinquished your 12-year-old male to me for 12 years. And he would work for room and board only. And this is where I usually get the 12-year-olds being pushed my way. In the 12th year, if he was really, really good, we would pay him journeyman wages so he had something to go out, a nest egg to go out on. If you were from a wealthy family, they could buy you the equipment and you could start your own shop. But guess what? If he was really, really good and my business was growing and growing and growing and growing, which it was back then, it probably would behoove me to hold on to him and just hire him and get a new apprentice. The owner would take care of the people part, as I said. You had the pressman who actually ran the press. You had the compositor who actually set the type out of those cases. And you had a young lad called the printer's devil. Now, the printer's devil was a unique individual. He sort of did every dirty job the other 3 guys didn't want to do. In today's world, he'd be going for a pizza at noon. It would be the gopher. But back then, you sort of paid your dues. You start at the bottom and work your way to the top. Now, as I said, if you would come to me in the early 1900s, you would probably have your job handwritten on a piece of paper. Now, that typewriter over there is a 1922 Underwood typewriter, fully operational. Try to find a ribbon for it. Okay, it's very, very difficult. But in 1922, that was $70. That was kind of a big piece of change to buy a typewriter. In today's world, they would be a little less expensive and a lot faster. You know what I'm talking about, a computer. So what you had was something written down, and I would come out as the owner and greet you and make sure that if there were names involved in the job, I would be able to spell them correctly, and if there was a number sequence, I would have that down. Other than that, our compositor actually used a dictionary to set type, and he was well versed in spacing and that kind of thing. During this conversation, I would ask you how you wanted it laid out. You would tell me just like it is on the piece of paper, or I'll let it up to you, and then I would tell you to come back in 3 or 3.5 weeks. This isn't Kinko's and you're not getting it by noon. We use oil-based ink here totally. That takes 24 hours to dry. If you want more than one color, we would do one color at a time and then let it dry, the ink, and then come back and do another color and let that dry. So it was a process. And then you had to be slipped in the production schedule. So it wasn't as fast as we might like it, but it was better than anything going at the time.